There are moments in your life that you don't recognize as important until they're gone. A Tuesday afternoon, a coffee cup with a lipstick stain on the rim, a laugh you didn't think to memorize because you were sure, absolutely sure, you'd hear it again. That's the thing about love, isn't it? It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock on your door and say, "Pay attention, this is the one. This is the chapter you'll spend the rest of your life trying to reread." It just arrives. Quietly. The way rain begins before you notice the sky has changed. His name was Daniel. And the first time I saw him, I wasn't looking for anything. I was 26, sitting in a bookstore on a rainy Thursday afternoon. The kind of rain that makes the whole world feel smaller, like the city is pressing itself gently against your window. I had a book I wasn't really reading in my lap, a coffee that had gone cold, and absolutely nowhere to be. He sat down across from me without asking. Not rudely, not arrogantly. He just sat. Like the chair had always been his. Like we had always known each other and he was simply returning. He looked up, caught me staring, and said, without a smile, without hesitation, "Whatever you're reading, it's clearly not working." I didn't laugh. I wanted to, but I didn't. I said, "How would you know?" And he said, "Because you've been on the same page for 40 minutes. I looked down at my book. He was right. I looked back up. And that was it. That was the whole beginning of my entire undoing. People talk about falling in love like it's a single moment. A lightning strike, a movie scene. But that's not what it was. It was slower than that. And more terrifying. It was the third date when he remembered I'd mentioned, offhand, that I was nervous about a work presentation. And he texted me at 7 a.m. just to say, "You already know everything you need to know." Nothing more. No explanation. No waiting for a response. It was the way he always turned the volume down when I was thinking. It was Sunday mornings when he'd make eggs and burn the toast every single time, and apologize every single time. And I would eat the burnt toast every single time and never say a word because somehow those burnt edges felt like the most honest thing anyone had ever offered me. I had been loved before. I want to be clear about that, but I had never been seen before. There is a difference. Being loved can sometimes feel like someone holding a photograph of you and calling it intimacy. They love the image, the idea, the version of you that fits neatly into their life. Daniel loved the parts of me that didn't fit anywhere. My 2 a.m. spiral thinking. My habit of crying at commercials and refusing to admit it. The way I went silent when I was scared instead of asking for help. Something every person before him had called cold. And he simply called yours. He never tried to fix me. He just stayed in the room. And do you know how rare that is? Do you know how much of your life you can spend waiting for someone who will simply stay in the room? 6 months in, we drove 4 hours to see the ocean because I said I missed it and couldn't remember the last time I'd been. We got there at dusk. The sky was doing that impossible thing it does, purple and gold and burning all at once. We stood at the edge of the water and didn't say anything for a long time. And then he reached over and took my hand. Not dramatically. Not like a moment from a film. Just took it. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like my hand had always been the place his was supposed to rest. I think about that moment more than any other, because that was the moment I stopped being afraid. That was the moment I thought, okay, it's safe here. I can put everything down now. I didn't know I was putting it down in a place I wouldn't be able to find again. Love doesn't end in one day. I think that's what people don't tell you. They talk about the breakup, the conversation, the night someone leaves. But the leaving starts long before that. It starts in the small distances. The way he stopped turning down the volume. The way the Sunday eggs started being eaten quickly, standing at the counter, instead of at the table with the window open and his terrible music playing. The texts became shorter. The silences became different. Less peaceful, more careful. Like we were both navigating a floor we weren't sure would hold. I noticed it. Of course I noticed it. But here is what no one tells you about loving someone deeply. When things start to change, your first instinct is not to ask. Your first instinct is to be better, to laugh a little louder, to need a little less, to make yourself smaller, easier, more convenient, as though love is a lease you have to keep renewing by proving your value. I cooked more. I complained less. I swallowed words that deserved to be spoken. I performed a version of myself I thought he wanted, while the version of me he had actually loved. The 2 a.m. thoughts, the honest fear, the full and complicated weight of me, quietly left the building. I was so busy trying to save something that I forgot I was disappearing inside it. And Daniel? I don't blame him. Not anymore. He was struggling with something I didn't fully understand then. Something that lived inside him long before I arrived. A restlessness. A fear of being truly, finally known. Because being truly known means being truly capable of being truly lost. He loved me. I believe that completely. But sometimes love isn't enough of an anchor for people who are afraid of staying still. There is a day, and you will only recognize it in hindsight, that is the last ordinary day. The last day before everything changes. The last day you woke up still inside the life you had built and didn't know you were about to leave it behind. For me, it was a Wednesday in October. I remember because the leaves outside the window had just turned. That specific red that looks almost too saturated to be real, like a painting trying too hard. We made coffee. We talked about nothing. He said he had to run errands. I said I'd probably go for a walk. He kissed my forehead before he left. That familiar place, that familiar pressure, and the door closed behind him. I stood in the kitchen for a moment. The apartment was quiet in that golden afternoon way, and I thought, not dramatically, just as a passing thought, the kind that floats through and disappears. I am happy right now. Simple as that. I am happy right now. I didn't know it was the last time I would think that sentence and mean it the way I meant it then. He came home that evening. We had dinner. We watched something I can't even remember now. And somewhere in the middle of the night, while I was asleep, something in him made a decision. I don't know exactly when. I don't know what thought crossed his mind in the dark. But by morning, I could feel it. The way you feel a change in weather before it arrives. Something in the air of us had shifted. And I knew, the way you know things you're not ready to say out loud, that we were standing at an ending, and I was the only one still pretending we weren't. He told me on a Sunday. Of course it was a Sunday. He didn't say it was over. Not at first. He said he needed space. He said he was struggling. He said all the things people say when they're trying to be kind about something that cannot be made kind. I sat across from him at the same table where we'd eaten 100 burnt toast breakfasts, and I listened to every word, and I understood every word, and I still could not make it feel real. I didn't cry. Not then. I think I was too busy trying to memorize him. The way he looked. The way his hands were folded on the table. The slight downward pull at the corners of his mouth that meant he was carrying something heavy. I thought, I know this face better than I know my own. I thought, how do you unknow something like that? I didn't ask him to stay. I want you to know that. Not because I didn't want to, but because I understood, in that quiet and devastating way, that wanting someone to stay who needs to leave is not love. It's fear wearing love's clothes. Real love, the kind I believed in, the kind he had shown me, doesn't hold the door shut. So I let him go. And the door closed. And I sat in that apartment, in that silence, and felt the exact shape of the space he had occupied for the first time. Because now it was empty. Grief after love is strange. It doesn't feel like sadness. Not exactly. It feels more like orientation. Like you've been walking a familiar road for years, and someone has quietly removed all the landmarks. And now you know every step of the path, but nothing looks the way it should. I kept finding him in my days. A song he would have pointed to in a store. A restaurant we'd said we'd try. A headline I went to, text him before remembering. Before catching myself mid-reach, hand already toward my phone, and feeling the floor of reality come up sharp and fast. That's the part they don't show in films. Not the dramatic cry in the rain. The stopping yourself from texting. Every single day. For weeks. The habit of love outliving the love itself. I won't tell you there was one morning I woke up and felt fine. There wasn't. But there was a morning, maybe 4 months later, when I made coffee, stood at the window with the cup warm in both hands, and watched the street below, and didn't, for the first time, think of him first. I thought of myself first. And that small, quiet shift felt like the first true breath after a very long time underwater. I am not the same person I was before Daniel. I want to be honest about that. Some of what changed is loss. I won't dress it up. I lost a particular kind of ease, that early, unmarked trust that comes before you know love can end. Before you've stood at an ending and understood, in your body, not just your mind, that beautiful things can leave. You can't unlearn that, and I wouldn't want to pretend otherwise. But some of what changed is not loss at all. He taught me to stay in the room with myself, the way he had stayed in the room with me, to not run from my own difficult edges, to treat my own 2 a.m. thoughts with the same patience he had shown them. He taught me, by loving me, what I actually deserved. And so even in the leaving, he was still giving me something. That is the complicated grace of a love that doesn't last. It shows you the shape of what's possible. It raises the ceiling. And you walk forward with a heart that knows, not from theory but from memory, what it feels like to be truly seen. To be truly held. You carry that knowledge forward like a compass. It doesn't take the ache away, but it points somewhere worth walking. If you are somewhere right now carrying a love that ended, if you are standing at a window thinking about someone who no longer stands beside you, I want you to hear this. What you feel is real. What you had was real. And the fact that it ended does not reach backward and unmake it. The love was true. The love happened. And you who loved that well, that honestly, that completely, you are not smaller for having lost it. You are, if anything, wider. There is more of you now than there was before, even if it doesn't feel that way yet. Especially if it doesn't feel that way yet. Hold on. The next ordinary day, the kind you won't recognize as important until it's already quietly saving you, is closer than you think. If this story felt like something you needed today, stay. There's more here for you. And if someone else needs to hear this, share it. You never know who's sitting alone right now, needing exactly these words.